space of 3PL, right? And when you think about a 3PL, obviously you've got the large players in the market. You've got the CH Robinsons, you got the TQLs, the Echoes, and things like that, right? The SPIs, all these other entities. But the thing with a third-party logistics company, what that is a manufacturer or a shipper has a need to engage external parties to help them move product, right? So the actual concept of a third party logistics, that phrase, that term really came out in the early 70s. And the thing with that is it came out, and I think if I'm remembering correctly, it had something to do, or it was intermodal marketing companies is where it came out, because it originated with no intermodal. And then through the 80s, it kind of took on a little bit more of a transition with freight brokerages and those types of things. But the thing with the third party logistics, they don't actually accept or take the title of the product, right? So they're transporting the product from the manufacturer to the warehouse, from the warehouse to the market, right? So a third-party logistics company, when a shipper or manufacturer engages those, one of the things that stands out is that shipper or that manufacturer still has multiple areas of contact, because they may have 4 or 5 different brokers that they deal with. So they're dealing with 4 or 5 different brokers. And sometimes these brokers will get involved slightly with some of the manufacturer's operations, and they'll say, okay, well, hey, do you have this picking up every Tuesday, every Wednesday, right? But some of the benefits of dealing with a 3PL, if you're a manufacturer or shipper, is you get to focus on your core competency. Okay, so what do I mean? Maybe a manufacturer's core competency isn't in the transportation world. It's making widgets. So they get to focus on that. And then what they do is they can reach out and branch out to some of these third-party logistics companies to take this product and worry about how it's going to get transported to the warehouse or the market or the DC in those areas. Another benefit to a manufacturer or shipper dealing with a third-party logistics company, they can take that relationship that they have with the third-party logistics company and kind of rely on them to always be there to pick up their freight, to do these types of things. In a third-party logistics company, they're vetting the carriers. They're making sure that the carriers are compliant, that they have authority, that they have the contract, that they have the insurance that's needed. But there's some drawbacks to a third-party logistics provider as well. And when you think about that, if you're a shipper or manufacturer and you're working with a third-party logistics company that doesn't have a very good compliance department or has encountered some opportunities in those realms, there's a lot of exposure. And a lot of times manufacturer shippers aren't fully aware of that exposure. And if they don't have a contract with a third-party logistics provider, then they could be exposing themselves to a lot of opportunities. That's why it's key. And I'm speaking from the side of a shipper. As I stated earlier in this, I was with Sara Lee U.S. Foods, right? So we're dealing with a lot of different things. And one of the things that we understood very, very early on into this is we needed a contract, and we needed to make sure that we thoroughly vetted that third-party logistics provider. And we wanted to know, what was their compliance like? How did they go into their carriers? How did they score their carriers? How was that? And we got into that type of stuff. So that was a way for us to truly get to know a third-party logistics company.
So to clarify, so that it's really clear for the audience, is that when we say 3PL, there's two. I think of it as 2 levels, and you can correct me. One level is there's a manufacturer, say they're in the city, they got a manufacturing facility, and as they're producing, it comes off the line. Instead of using that same facility, they actually have a warehouse right next door. So they literally just, forklift the pallet. So they got a warehouse for storing the stuff. And then within their company, they have a logistics department who vets out and seeks out third-party companies to help them move their freight to the market, is one level. The second level is that a manufacturer produces the widgets, but they don't want to deal with all that. So they actually get the freight maybe through a broker, but they basically ship the full product, full truckloads to an actual warehouse. And then through that, they still work with the 3PLs, and the warehousing company loads the trucks because they could say, hey, we want 2 pallets of this and 10 pallets of that and 4 pallets of this and 3 pallets of this product. It's all generally full pallets, but mixture of products. But they're shipping, when they are producing product A on the line, they ship a truckload, okay, to that warehouse, then they produce B, and that it's all there. And then the brokers are still involved as far as the pickup and the deliveries, and the manufacturer is still involved with vetting and selecting those parties, and they take care of it. Because the difference, I think, with until we get to the fourth and fifth levels, a freight broker cannot take possession of freight, right?
Correct. Correct.
And so am I right in that assumption on the different models, like whether manufacturers using their warehousing or they are using an outside warehousing?
Well, so there are some 3PLs so the line between a 3PL and a 4PL can get a little gray, right? Because you've got some 3PL companies out there who will say, okay, we've got our warehousing component, we've got our logistics, and you've got some of that. And you know what? There are 3PL models where they incorporate the warehousing component of that, right? And that gets a little bit closer to a 4PL, but it's not quite a 4PL. But to your point, if you're a shipper or manufacturer and your core competency, or you want to focus on making widgets, selling widgets, and you don't want to deal with or be burdened with some of the movement of that product or the storage of that product, you reach out to a third-party provider to do that.
And in this case, at the third-party level, before we jump to the fourth, is the manufacturer or the distributor is involved in choosing the 3PL party at this stage.
Absolutely, right? So when you think about that, right, if you're a shipper or manufacturer, you are still the person who's selecting who's going to haul this freight. You're still in that. You're going to say, I'm going with broker A, I'm going with broker B, I'm going with broker C, and you still got some of that involvement, right? Where you're sending that out, and so companies sometimes they don't want to release that full control, or they want to still retain some of that control to where they say who's going to get the freight. But they don't want to deal with, or it's not in their core competency of being able to say, I want to vet all of these carriers, or I want to make sure that listen, there's a reason why there's a massive 3PL market. Okay. And the reason why there's this massive 3PL market is these brokers have the ability to come in, build relationships, good brokers, build relationships with carriers. They understand what it takes to move freight. They understand that these guys out there who are actually transporting this freight, who are strapping down these loads, who are chaining down this freight, who are doing what they need to do, they know it's a tough job, and they build these relationships, and it takes time. It takes infrastructure, it takes resources, it takes time. So that's what a 3PL offers to a shipper. We can do all that. The shippers, they may look at it and from their perspective, this guy's going to give me this rate at this service. He's going to give me this rate at this service. And then they just pick and choose. But everything that goes on behind that, Robert, you and I know there's a lot that goes into logistics, right? And everything behind that, that's what the brokers do. And that's what a 3PL or a brokerage offers to a customer. Hey, listen, we're going to pick up this freight. We're going to transport it to the best possible way that our carriers can, safe, reliable, on time. We're going to give you updates. Right, of all of that type of stuff.
Right, and then and again, just before we get to the 4PL, this is where it's a huge opportunity for brokers and broker agents is to form relationships with the companies that are seeking this kind of thing. That's the bane of our business, is those kind of things, and it takes time and effort. When you're if you're seeing this video and you're a new agent, just know that it takes time and effort and skill, and to understand these supply chain models. And the more that you dive yourself into this and understanding how your role as a third party freight broker agent fits into the supply chain of a company, is going to form you to have long-term business in this industry.
Absolutely. It comes down to relationships, right? And part of that relationship is holding up your end of the deal, your end of the bargain, and bringing something to the table, right? Hey, if you use a 3PL, and if that 3PL is always on time, and here's the thing too, when I say always on time, things happen in the logistics industry. Drivers run out of hours, trucks break down, there's traffic, there's weather events, there's several things that can happen. And when those things happen, The good 3PLs, the good brokers, the good agents, they're on the phone with their customer and they're advising them ahead of time. This is what's happening. This is what's going on. This is this is when the product's going to get there, right? Put it in perspective. What I used to do all the time when I would talk to people, I would talk to customers and whatnot. I understand what it's like to have a just-in-time delivery operation. And that you've got 30 different trucks that are coming in from all different places. And you're going to take those trucks, you're going to bring them into your warehouse, you're going to consolidate those trucks and put the product in different trucks, take it out and send it on to another destination. Now, if just one of those trucks is late, right? If you're expecting that truck to show up at 6 a.m. and all of a sudden it's 6:30 and that truck's not there, do you know the havoc that causes for that dock and that shipping location? And then if they got to get on the phone and they have to call their broker and say, "Where's my truck?" Why are they using you?
Right.
I mean, you have to ask yourself that. What benefit are you at? I'm the shipper. I tendered you this load. We agreed it had to be there at 6 a.m. Now I'm calling you at 6:30, and I've got 4 other trucks that are waiting for this product to get here. And what am I supposed to tell these other carriers? And who's going to pay for that detention? I mean, logistics is a complicated business, right? I would have rather had that call at 5:30 or 5 o'clock in the morning or 4 o'clock in the morning or the day before that, hey, that truck that you thought was going to get there at 6, it's not going to get there till 7. Do I like it? No, but you know what? Thanks. Now I can rearrange things. I can call these other carriers. I can change different orders. I can get into the weeds and understand what needs to happen to minimize the cost, improve my service to the customer, and get it done. Right. And the good 3PLs, the good 3PLs, those are the ones who are proactive on that.
Well, what I was going to say is what you talked about on the just in times. I have a customer that unfortunately closed several years ago, but they were a fantastic customer for years. And they were a busy facility. Like Fridays tend to be a really busy day, but their warehouse wasn't big. So when they structured their orders, they had to like pile pallets on top of, they had to order, and they had to literally put pallets down the laneways of the racking. So they stacked it according to if they had a 9 o'clock, we had a 9, like somebody had 5 trucks in the day, and they based it on that. Now, if one truck got out, now they're trying to juggle, many pallets. So part of that process, I'd suggest, if you're an agent and you get into these situations, first off, to your point, talking about, okay, when you have a busy day where you're doing multiple trucks, are you staging these pallets exactly in the order? Or are you just, when the truck arrives, going to the forklift, pulling it down from the second row, and the driver drives it in the truck, goes back, grabs the second? Because that makes a big difference. Because if they're doing that model where they're not actually pulling it until the truck arrives, then there is a little bit forgiveness in that regard, as long as you communicate which truck is coming. But if they're pre-staging the night before, if they have a night crew that stages the next day's orders, you have to be on the ball. And part of that is an example. Just yesterday, I have a shipment picking up this week, coming out of Pennsylvania. And I'm talking to carriers. First thing, again, I go back to the carriers I did the load with before. I call them up. We're talking about, I got a truck that's going to be in PA. Where? This is Wednesday, and we're picking up. He wants to pick up Friday. Okay, where's your truck? Well, it's going to be here. We'll be emptying Friday morning. Well, they're 155 miles away from my shipper. So I started getting into the weeds. I said, it's Wednesday. How many hours left in your driver's logbooks? Where's he planning to sleep? What time are you planning to deliver? Because I said all this because I said, if you're planning to be there, he says, well, 8 o'clock, we're going to deliver. So it's 10 o'clock. 3-hour drive is going to put you at 1. You got to get there by 1. Like 12, my customer really wants the truck there by 12. So I said, can you not check if there's earlier? And I said, well, where's the driver? So we went through this whole detail. I had to tell him, check the driver's ELD. We're supposed to be the transportation professionals for our shippers. You're the dispatcher. You don't even need to call your driver with the ELDs now. You can check his hours, and then you can call him and confirm, because maybe we don't know when the driver is currently in between they're on one load and the dispatch planning the next one. Well, maybe they have an air leak on their glad hands. Maybe they got a broken mud flap that you don't know about. Maybe there's a tail light that they have to stop service and fix. So those things happen. We get that. We can't control the weather, road construction somewhat, because you can look on maps and route accordingly. But weather, if there's an accident on the road and the highway gets closed or something, but those are all the key factors that exactly to your point. And further, as we saw in the past, well, I guess 5 years, the growth of carrier onboarding software, it's
Oh,
huge
yeah.
now, right?
Yes.
From it, we got our own internal person. There's brokerscarrier.com through to RMIS, to carrier packet 411, RMIS, and then Go Highway. And there's many others on there as well that are out there. But the idea is the importance of properly vetting your carriers, and part and parcel is that when you form that relationship with your manufacturer distributor as their 3PL, you need providers that are going to execute for you, pure and simple. And further, when you have this 3PL model, not only can you do truckload, you can do LTL if you have the skill sets, and you can potentially offer drayage. If they have materials coming in from overseas that are there, you can bring it into their manufacturing process, which ties in. So this model is critical when you can get into a customer and offer multiple modes and a full service package.
Yeah, sure. And just kind of going on a little bit about that, Robert, think about it like this too. you know, there's so much more that a freight agent can offer to a shipper or a customer than just beyond logistics, right? Do you educate your shippers, your manufacturers on what's going on in the industry, right? You had just talked about all the different vetting models and compliance software and things. Well, why is that? What's the need for that? Well, have you had those conversations with your customer about what's going on with the fraud, with the theft, what's happening in the industry, where it's at today versus where it was? What about some of the new bills that are coming out with the AB5 in California and the impact that that's going to have? Or what's going on with, the situation with the transit through the canals over in the Suez Canal and in Panama with the drought, right? But having those conversations with your customer and educating them, you instead of looking at yourself as I'm a freight agent, or you almost have to look at yourself, and you should look at yourself as I'm a supply chain consultant to my customer,
Exactly.
right? Because truly, and that's where you can set yourself apart. You can truly bring more to the table, an agent can, than just, hey, I'm going to give you, a reliable truck at a good price. I'm going to help bring you through this. And how do you warehouse it? To your point, how do you staging it? How does it get shipped out? Is this the right routing? Have you thought about consolidating some of this freight and putting it on different days? I think a lot of times you get some of these inexperienced or inexperienced freight brokers or agents who haven't been around long enough. And they're just so excited to get the business. Great, thanks, I got it. And they're looking for a truck and to get it on. But that's the start of issues and opportunities, right? Because beyond that, like one of the things that I used to do is I would look at the delivery location, and if there was going to be delays or something like that, and I'm on the phone with the truck driver, hey, you know what? There's a Subway shop right around the corner here. Let's, if there's some delays, you can go up there and get your sandwich, get it done. I'm going to work with them. We'll get you some detention, and and you can kind of talk through that, because that conversation with the customer, you could and should have that same conversation with the carrier. Right. I mean, I've had conversations, relationships with carriers where, I knew them. I knew their family members. I knew what they liked, where they went. Sometimes I would send them gift cards. Hey, here's what's going on. You can do these types of things because, we exist together, right? We exist together with the shipper, with the broker, and with the carrier. It's a relationship.
Well, the more that you grow yourself with at the beginning, you're at that foundation level with your customer, and then as it goes on, you gain level and you get to the goal is the alliance level where there's a shared risk. And
Yeah.
because of your forward-thinking, like when you talk about, when I get an order from a customer, a PO, I don't just dispatch it to the truck right away. I'm looking at my customer saying, okay, what's the procedures for the loading? How much time is that going to take? And before I do anything, I call the consignees, because often I get situations where I'm delivering to a job site or something. I get the phone number for someone, and that is the purchase order person in the office. Well, I'm not on site. Okay, well, who's the contact? Then I find out who the contact is. Well, I phone that actually, the day you're going to deliver, I'm not going to be there, so you have to call this person, and then finding out the procedures and asking what's going on, like whether it's a warehouse or delivery to the job site. And sometimes, if your manufacturer is quite large, where they have lots of layers within their company, and they got buyers and salespeople and logistics departments, sometimes their processes it's a process to get an order, it gets pushed out, And it goes, and then when you talk to the consignee and you said, yeah, we're going to deliver on Wednesday. Well, we needed this Tuesday. Oh, well, they didn't know that. So you bring that back to the customer, and the sales rep didn't realize this, and someone else, and all of a sudden you turn that, what was a reasonable cost order, they say, well, can you get a team on this? See, you averted a whole bunch of issues from you helped prevent your customers and customer from being disappointed by communicating
Oh
and
yeah,
have a conversation. And just like just the other day, I had a shipment coming out of Calgary, just a local one to another town. But I saw that the weather was changing in Calgary because we had a snowstorm coming, and they had the site we're delivering to is a mall, and they had Zoom booms arranged for that day, and we were going to go the more economical. But my economical LTL says we can't deliver till 1, 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and my fear was with the snow coming, they may not even deliver. They might hold the truck back because they do milk run to get there. So I
sure.
phoned my customer and I said to them, and I went back to the carrier that had higher price, and I explained to them the situation. Well, guess what? They found another shipment to match up to help bring the price down. Talked to my customer, said, "Hey, with the storm coming, my fear is that I might be calling you that we're not going to be delivering. So I'd rather go this route, which is more direct. It was a little bit more money, but they understood it and they didn't want to disappoint their customer. They said, go for it. And so those things happen. You have to be on the ball and you have to be creative with your business and
Mhm.
understanding your customers, and not just your customer, but your customers and customers. And the more that you have this, and utilizing your TMSs to put notes and procedures, makes it so you're not reinventing the wheel every time. And it sure, like, it's helped me huge in my business.
Oh yeah, no, I would agree. And part of what you had just talked about there, relies on the technology component, right? So you got some of these smaller 3PLs, they may not have some of that technology where you can go in and put those notes. And I mean, it sounds very easy for us because we're used to it. But if you're that one or two person freight brokerage and you're operating out of your house or your basement, and you're running on some bottom line software, you may not have some of those automations, and it's kind of hard to do, and you got to work around that with I don't know, Excel or Word or whatnot. But some of the advantages we have, dealing with top of line software and putting that information in, and we can have prompts that help us and tell us, and all if it goes into this shipping location, these are the details for this shipping location and this delivery location, specific information, based on a location standpoint.
Well, and my goal as a agent is two-part. One is I want to represent our company SPI, so I don't want to burn bridges for another agent's experience. If I had a bad experience with a carrier, I don't want to, if we have to involve management, we do, but I don't want to burn just because I had one bad experience with the carrier doesn't mean it's going to be the same way
Sure.
for all. But we've also had bad carriers consistently, and we know that. So we have checks and balances within our company to know which carriers we can and cannot use. And if there's a reason we cannot use it, there's notes, and we know, and I respect those decisions, because if I see your name on there, that's pretty serious. And I've seen a few with your name on there. And when I see that, I don't even question to call head office, well, to beg and ask for forgiveness. They'll use this carrier. No, I'll find someone else because I see that's there, and there's a reason. When your name is on there, it's been well involved. So that's part of it. But the main part that I look at as an agent that I can pass along to the audience is, if you're an agent, a freight broker agent, book the loads and do all your research so that you want the experience to be so easy with your customer and easy for the carrier. So easy for
Mhm.
the carrier. Think about the carrier. When they give you the address, sometimes the address they give you is not the shipping entrance. That's actually the office entrance. The truck entrance is on the side of the building. You need to
That's
figure
right.
that out. So when you make it so easy for the driver, and then you make it so easy for the consignee and the shipper, and everyone knows, guess what? If you're calling that consignee every time, hey, it's Rob, we have another delivery coming. Great. Next
Mhm.
next time you call, may not happen right away. 10, 15 loads later, hey, Rob, we've been struggling with some lanes. Boy, I really like your communication. Would you be interested in quoting our freight? It's happened more times than you
Yeah,
think. And just by
absolutely.
consistency over time. But when you make it so easy, you don't, when the carrier, I have carriers that would rather work with me. They're not going to backdoor me because there's always that fear that the carrier will say, backdoor you, try to steal your customer, provide information to another broker. There's always that risk in this business. But when you do it so well, I've had carriers call me and say, yeah, they just want to book it with me. They don't want to book with anyone else or things like that. The market is competitive, but I know that when you do it well, Carriers appreciate that, shippers appreciate that, and you maintain a good relationship with all parties involved.
Oh, sure. No, you're exactly right. And just kind of echoing some of the comments that you had just spoke about. Once you get that load from your customer, right? Another couple seconds, pick up the phone, like you said, call the receiver. Is there anything special I need to know about this? I've got a truck coming in here tomorrow. Where should they go? Who should they look for? Is there a dock name? And here's that's twofold. One, because you're getting all that information, and then when you call that carrier and you're booking that freight, okay, hey, the guy you're going to talk to is Ed. You're going to go for a blue door on the side. You're going to do these all the things. So you're helping that driver. You're letting them know that one, you care. You're making his life or her life easier. They're getting it done, right? And you're building that rapport with that driver. Okay. Wow, this guy went through all these problems. And hey, if you have any questions, give me a call. And here's another question that a lot of agents or brokers probably don't ask the carrier, and they should. After a carrier gets loaded, hey, did they treat you well? Right? When they load, did they treat you well? How was that shipper? What was that like? Okay. And then at the delivery point, did they unload you good? Any problems? How was that experience? Right? It's just those small things to let the carrier know that you care, that they matter, right? Because that's a hard job. That is a very hard job. And if they're out there and they're busting their tail to get this freight done and doing a good job, and if there's something that's not right, maybe the carrier says, well, hey, you know what, the utilities were down when I was there. So then when you have that conversation with your customer later on, hey, did they ever get that fixed? Well, how do you know that, Robert? Oh, come on. I talk to the drivers. They tell me. And you're building that rapport. You're getting it going. But I said it was twofold. The other component of that too, though, Robert, is as you're talking to that receiver and you're getting all the instructions and the information for the receiving facility, you're gonna set yourself apart, or an agent is going to set themselves apart. Well, man, you're asking a lot of questions. You know this. Well, yeah, and you're building that rapport with them. Because listen, every truck that comes in delivering product is at least another truckload of product coming back out. Right? So you can secure that. And then think about that. If you can secure that business, then that carrier who's maybe delivering a load for you today, if they deliver that today, it takes 3 or 4 days for them to process it. Another load comes in, you can get them on a load going out. And then you're talking continuous runs. And if you can get those continuous runs going, it makes it that much easier for you, for the carrier, and your customer.
And I make an effort actually at the end of all loads, after they've delivered. I always say thanks you to the dispatch team, but I say thank your driver, please. Please thank your driver for a great job. I try to make that effort there, especially if I know the driver's did a good job. Because I recently had a situation where a customer called and they were disappointed with the driver. There was a couple of things happened that they thought, geez, but guess what? Despite that situation, the driver had the wherewithal. It was a situation where it was a power only and there was a problem. And I called, my customers like, oh, see what I mean? They thought it was the driver's fault, but no, it was an issue with the trailer, and they adverted. That driver saved, because my customer originally said, no, I don't want to see that carrier again. And, but now I'm going to be able to use them again because that carrier did do a good job at the end of the day. So frustrating in one aspect. But the unfortunate part is that this industry, there are a lot of new drivers, and unfortunately it takes time to hone that craft of backing and turning in tight corners and things of that nature. That's on the carriers, to train the drivers, which is the time and effort factor. And there's so many the models, because there's a lot of owner operators versus the company drivers, and I think that's a factor in training, because sometimes people rush through the training process to get to that owner operator level. But regardless, at the end of the day, it's the drivers that are the sacrifice. They're the ones that are on there for 4 or 5 days if it's a long run, and they're away from their families, missing activities and events. So all we can say is, if you see a driver, be courteous to them on the roads, leave space. When I drive on the highways, the simple rule I can tell everyone is, if you've never been a class 1 driver, which I have not, but my father was, is when I drive behind one, if I can't see the driver's mirror, I'm too close.
He can't see you. Yep.
Exactly. That's my model. And then I tell my kids, when there's a semi truck, like, give them the room, right? Pay attention to them. But yeah, you don't want to you don't want to be too close to them. Just give them the space. But if you see a driver out there ever walking, just thank them, because
Mhm.
they're the people bringing the goods to you. Whether it's, you may not see it, they may have brought some product that went to one warehouse that they then manufactured something that ended up at your door. But a driver is involved in all aspects of our life somehow, some way, whether it's ocean freight coming in with drayage, all the way to a courier package with FedEx
Mhm.
getting delivered. There's transportation is a critical part of our life, because we live and breathe stuff, and well, something's got to get shipped somehow, some way.
You're right. And we
So
think about it, Robert, everything that we're eating, thinking, or everything that we're eating, seeing, wearing, whatever, buying, all came on a truck somewhere in the process.